Hello there, Mark O'Donnell here with Operations Excellence, and welcome back to the Operations Excellence podcast. It's been a few months, but we're very excited because we've been taking the time and the resources to create a workshop, which we'll talk about today, and hopefully you'll go online and grab that workshop. So we are here at Clickstream Content Studios. My good friend Danny is behind the console. Danny, good morning.
Morning.
And I would like to introduce our guest today. I'm very excited to have my good friend, the young and always ready to talk, Mr. Zach Premo. Zach is with LED Signs, the LED sign guys. Zach, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
I'm excited. And in full disclosure, you are one of my coaching clients.
Yes.
So tell our audience a little bit about your background, because I think it's fascinating. You are when I refer to you without using your name to other clients and prospective clients, I call you a young serial entrepreneur. I think that's accurate.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
tell us a little bit about your background.
So since 18, I've spent my my career in really the most general way I can put it is digital signage. It started with digital mobile billboard trucks, and over time it evolved with experimentation and trying different things and reviewing new solutions. And now today we kind of are able to retrofit a digital screen into anything, whether it's an old aeroboard trailer, typical business storefront signs, even indoor video TV walls, anything to do with digital signage, digital advertising, and they all have the capability to play video, static ads, animated ads, video games, live streams.
Mm-hmm.
So, very versatile things, and, there's kind of a lot that we can do with it.
Cool. Very cool. Could you, so we've been working together now for, goodness, 6 months-ish, something like that.
At least.
Yeah, maybe a little more than that. It goes back to late last year, right?
Yeah.
In your own words, and we did not rehearse this or prompt this at all. What do you get out of one-on-one coaching, and what's the value you've seen from that?
A lot of what, the number one thing that comes to mind is the ability to help me kind of structure all the things that I have going on in here.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's been one of the most beneficial and life-changing things since I've been working with you. Ever since growing up, I've always had a very cluttered mind. I've always been an idea person, and, obviously ideas are nothing without action. And ideas are nothing when you're trying to implement too many, because you're not truly putting out something quality, or you're not giving something a true try.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the organization has been one of the most valuable things to me by far. You've really helped me not only organize the thoughts, like I said, but also prioritize and understand my next steps. And, at the end of the day, too, one of the best benefits of it is another like-minded person to bounce ideas off of and get advice from as well.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, someone who's been and had the experience like you have. So
Mm-hmm.
it's, I'd say those are some of the most valuable things that I can think of off the top of my head.
That's awesome. Have you found then that the actual execution of the ideas has improved?
100%. I talked about going more into the sign business for 2-3 years, and I think working with you has really kind of nudged me into that direction. And once I really just started with a job or two, then it kind of took off from there, because you kind of helped me understand that I'm not I don't know what the right way to say it is, but I'm not, crazy for thinking this is the way I should go. It's a lot easier to hear that it's a lot more beneficial to hear that from someone like you than it is to hear it from myself.
Well, you're checking your thinking.
Yes.
Right? And I think it's natural, especially if we have ideas that might be a leap, or, I don't like the term, but for lack of something else outside the box, something that's really different. I think there's a certain human reaction to go, oh, is that crazy? Is that even possible? right? So to have somebody to bounce that off of and kind of check, geez, am I crazy or is this feasible, right? To check, kind of feasibility check in. And I was always blessed throughout my career to have informally people in the organization. Sometimes, like, I even had assistants who I would have them read some very high-level stuff that I had written just to check, not just my grammar, like without me telling them, I was having them check the ideas.
Yes.
Because I knew if they thought it was nuts, they would tell me.
Yeah, and,
right?
and most of the time with my business, I'm working, with myself. I'm in my own mind all day. I don't have someone directly next to me to work with or to bounce ideas off of. So when it's like that all day, every day,
right?
You get
right.
It's only your opinions you're hearing.
Well,
it's only
same
your
here.
Feedback.
When you're flying solo and you're a one-man show, essentially, that's why I still have a coach.
Yeah.
Right. That I check in with at very least every other week, but sometimes weekly. And a lot of times it's exactly the same kind of thing. His name's Gerard. I'll say, Gerard, is this nuts? Yeah. And he'll laugh and, we'll talk it through. And well, not really. No. But if, have you thought about this or that? And so same thing I do with you. He's using the same kind of techniques where it's helping me gain perspective.
Absolutely.
And definitely on occasion we'll offer some input if I ask, but it really is about gaining perspective. So, one other thing I want to talk about with coaching, and you've kind of touched on it, so I'm going to go down this road a little further. I've had a few of my coaching clients actually tell me they think of me as their business therapist. And I am actually honored that, I find that high praise, right? Because what that tells me is that they see me as somebody that they can talk with about anything. Right. And very sometimes, deep stuff that they might not trust with somebody else. But what I'm getting at is that relationship coach and person being coached, a lot of the value in that sometimes is also the emotional stuff, the thinking. And you and I have talked about, the trap of the negative thinking and some tools to overcome that with practicing discipline and affirmations and positive thinking. Have you gotten value on those lines, and what are your thoughts on that with the coaching relationship?
100%. I think one of the tougher parts about being an entrepreneur, especially maybe a more isolated one that doesn't necessarily employ a bunch of people. I think one of the hardest parts are understanding some of the emotions that you can't really talk to. I mean, you can talk to family and friends about it, but there's certain things that, people from that perspective can only understand. Right. And I think those are definitely things. I've had a lot of emotional conversations with you where I walked away feeling so much better knowing that, that's the right way to feel, or I just need to look at it a different way through perspective. Right. So 100%.
And you bring up an interesting point, and this comes up often in one-on-one coaching and in groups, whether it's a development program or some kind of coaching environment. What I try to really drive home to people is what you feel is just what you feel, right? We are human beings, and by nature we have this dual nature, and I don't mean good and evil. That's way above my pay grade. I'm talking about we have an intellect, the ability to reason, right? And we have emotions. And the two are never completely separate, right? So what I feel in any given moment, and throughout the course of any given day, it's very likely I'm going to feel most of the whole gamut of emotions, right? I mean, somebody's going to cut me off in traffic, I'm going to get angry, or I'm going to get impatient, or I'm going to get sad, or I'm going to be happy, whatever. Yeah. Right?
Or if you're in the startup world, you could be 1 minute away from your business skyrocketing, or 1 minute away from it collapsing.
Fear, right? Right. That's a real base human emotion that a lot of certainly entrepreneurs and business people are facing every day. But what I'm getting at is what we feel, I believe most of the time, is neither right nor wrong. It just is. Yeah. Right? What's more important is what I do with that emotion. So one of the things, and you and I talked about this, I think, early on, one of the tricks that I try to pass on, and this gets to EQ, emotional intelligence, right? Because controlling our own emotions is an aspect of emotional intelligence, right? It's understanding our own emotions, being able to control our more disruptive emotions. And then with others, it's empathy, right? Understanding others, and then the ability to help them work to emotional clarity, right? And then the fifth aspect is motivation. But the four main aspects with self and others I just outlined. But when you're talking about controlling your own emotions, the more disruptive, the big thing there, if you put a human being under enough emotional strain, without some aspect of discipline being practiced by that individual, they will react based on emotion. Full stop, period. It's true, right? But learning how to practice that little bit of self-discipline so I can feel what I feel, but not, I have a friend of mine, she talks about the gumball effect, where for years, like she would have a thought based on emotion and it would be just like a gumball, just come flying right out, right? Well, you want to stop that. Right? I don't want to react based on emotion. I've had lots of times people walked in my office with some issue that in their world was, a big deal. And as soon as they told me what it was, in my mind, because I've got more years experience and I've whatever, thinking, well, just go do X, right? But I don't want to be dismissive and short with them. I want to use that as a teaching moment. Because if I can teach them how to think through and solve the problem and how to get there, then they don't have to come ask next time, right? Now, not only do they understand how to solve the problem, now they can help others learn how to solve the problem too, right? So what I would do is count backwards from 10. Very simple, and I've never gotten below 7. Just those few seconds allows that, emotion to kind of settle a little bit, and I can get back to, okay, sit down, let's talk about it, and kind of get back to being a coach, right, which is one of the highest forms of leadership. So that's a really important thing, is to understand that, because I think a lot of times as human beings, not just business people, I think humans in general, we feel some emotion, anger, fear, right, some of the more negative emotions, and we want to pick up the virtual baseball bat. I shouldn't feel like this. I remember saying that to a friend years ago, and he burst out laughing, almost in my face, and I was quite offended for a second. Why is he laughing at me? He goes, who the heck ever told you that? Because I said, geez, I shouldn't feel like this. Well, that's crazy. And you know what? He's right. I mean, who said how I should feel? Like I said, I'm going to get upset. It's just I don't have to show it. I don't have to react based on it, right?
Yeah, we can't really control the emotions. They're just there.
No. And you know what I have found too over time is that by practicing that pause, it helps me, in most cases, the intensity of the emotion when I first feel it is lessened.
Yeah.
Right? Just because there's a part of me that kind of knows, like, I don't have to act on it. It's almost like this learned response. It's almost become subconscious, probably to some degree. Let's move on a little bit, because I do want to give you the chance to talk to the audience about where you're at right now, what your vision is for your business, because I think it's really exciting and cool, and what the value prop is, right, for potential clients for you out there. Why should they come to you to advertise with your digital sign?
Yeah. So first of all, when it comes to the building of digital signs for business storefronts or for concert venues, whatever it is, we can pretty much guarantee you that we are, because we're so local and because we're, building it up right now, we have the best prices around by far. There's not a lot of players around the area, and therefore they have a lot of margin for what they do. And, there's a few different ways to source products. There's a few different ways to build these screens, but at the end of the day, it's really all the same in the pieces that are, come together to make the sign. So we are local. Like I said, when we are able to quickly service any sign, we're able to come out and do a quote anytime, and you're going to get the best deal with us by far. And like when you work with any local business, they actually need that positive impression, that positive job to succeed and grow their business. So, we're always going to do the absolute best we can. And we are going to continue to push for more innovation and better quality. And, just more fun things outside of just traditional signage. Now we got these flexible panels that are coming out. That's how they built the Vegas Sphere. So there's a lot of fun stuff that can be done as the technology keeps progressing and progressing.
Have you flown into Vegas since the Sphere has been there?
I have not.
That is one of the wildest things. I mean, I've flown in and literally there's like eyeballs looking at you, and it's kind of freaky. Like it looks literally like this thing is a face looking at it. It's just why they can make it. It's crazy. And it's the creativity is off the charts.
Absolutely.
Off the charts. So what I heard you say is your value prop, as far as your competitors in that field with digital signs, is price, service, quality.
Yeah.
Right? What about for the local business?
I would actually also put in there, innovation and customizability or whatever, however you're supposed to say it, right?
Yeah.
We are able to literally anywhere you want a screen, we can build it into anything you want, or we can build it the exact same size as you want.
Awesome.
We just got done. We have one on the way right now. We have parts on the way from overseas for one that is 8.5 feet wide. It's a 550-pound sign. It is an absolute giant of a sign. But that's the size they requested. So
right.
We can make them as big as you want, as small as you want, as great quality as you want, as low quality, because obviously price dependent.
Sure.
Indoor, outdoor. There's really no limit to what we can build.
Innovation and ability to totally customize and meet their demand. That's awesome. So how about, what's the angle and the value prop, if you will, for the local business when they're looking at, okay, I've got X number of dollars to market? Like most businesses, right? They've got a budget. So why a digital sign and not something else?
So building a digital sign for your business is not only a marketing thing. It's an investment into your property. It increases your property value. It makes it more enticing to businesses to buy it, later on when you're trying to sell it. It is a huge asset to a property, especially if you're doing it right and we're building a nice solid post right out front. I mean, the sign frame and structure can last 20, 30, 40 years, and you can continually update the technology of it. You can just take out the panels, put in new panels, when it's 10 years down the road, and everybody's used to having, these high quality ones. It's honestly a fraction of the price to update a sign. So that's another thing that we provide is we don't have to build you a whole new sign structure. Obviously, that's a little bit more of an investment, but we can come and basically gut your old nasty.
So once they've got the superstructure there and they've got a sign that over the years they can update for much less money.
Absolutely. And, it's cool. Just, it's one of the best things you can do.
So it's an investment in a lot of ways. Yeah.
100%. And
Beautiful.
They're very, very easy to use. Everything's controllable from your phone, from your computer. And, we provide the training for the operation of the sign, which is very simple. And we don't put an hour number on how many hours we're going to train you on it. It's not done till the job's done.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love it. I love it. So where does the business go from here? You've really kind of made a transition, and I know this from working with you recently, to more of the digital sign as opposed to some of the other stuff that you were doing, throughout last year.
Yeah.
So what's your vision, by the end of this year and a few years out, and where do you see your business going?
Yeah, well, I want to, we started in the beginning of the year, we started off very slow just to make sure that our new process was the right way to go. I didn't want to take on 3-4 jobs while I was still learning and understanding the processes. So now that we have our model and our process down, my hope is to be able to do 3, 4, 5 of these a month, continually grow from there, and eventually be able to get a nice, warehouse space here and somewhere in central New York, and, the ability to be able to keep on growing it. Because we have the building process down to a very, very short amount of time. Once we have all of our parts sourced,
right.
One of the biggest things that we can do to hire is sales. So I've always wanted to be able to hire a salesperson, because every one of the businesses that I've worked on and been involved with, I've always been the only or main salesperson. So I very much love the signs because it really gives me the ability to get a little mix of everything and not just that sales. But I get the hands-on, the creativity, the sales,
and the technical side. You are a very technical guy in IT tech, pretty savvy.
Yes, I like figuring things out. I like thinking I can do something and then figuring it out.
It's probably another reason why you and I connect, because you've got that, right, and that's a part of me too, right? I love solving problems.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean I think one of the biggest things you can do when you're looking to start a business is actually just take the first step, because when I started, I was so confident that I could, build one from scratch just myself, no problem.
Yeah.
Oh man, I was so off, and it took me more months than I would have thought just to get the initial process down, because there's so many things you don't think about. But when you just say you're going to do it, you figure it out, and you figure it out really fast.
Because you have to.
Absolutely, you have to.
You've made a sale, now you got to figure it out.
Yes.
Would you say that I really appreciate the fact that you've referred multiple times to process, and being an old industrial engineer, love that term and love the concept. Do you believe your processes, as you have them now, are scalable? So as you grow, you could teach that and bring other people in and say, this is the process? And
yeah, I think it's the most scalable business model I've ever worked on, which is why I love it very much.
Mm-hmm.
Not only is it scalable in the sense of growth, because when you're working with signs,
Mm-hmm.
you're working off of deposits. So there's no, other than shop equipment, labor, there's not a significant investment to be able to, double, triple the business you're doing right now. But also on top of that, it is honestly it's at the end of the day with our process, I think you can teach any process to any person with the right amount of time and the right mindset.
Yeah.
So with this, it would be very easy to train and build, labor to build
Right.
it, grow and really multiply to a significant amount.
Cool. So you believe that it is very scalable at this point?
Absolutely.
How about the sales process?
The sales process, there's still some things I want to iron out, because I'm a fan of ridiculously unique sales calls.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm used to rolling up with the truck with businesses and playing their ad. I love the opportunity to grab someone's attention in the first few seconds.
Yep.
So right now we've actually been working primarily off of referrals. We did our first one. They referred us to the next one, which referred it. Like it keeps going when you do, when you do good work and when you
Absolutely.
When you communicate well with people.
Yep.
However, I do have essentially like a model that I'm working on where I'm going to be able to bring it into businesses or leave it out front and be able to have their ad playing like I've done in the past with another business. I really like, I don't like just average cold calling.
Yeah.
I have to make it fun. I have to make it exciting, or else I'm just going to dread it.
Yeah.
So I also see the effectiveness of it is just significant when you can really grab someone's attention in the first few seconds.
Well, I mean, let's face it. The more technical your product or service, I really believe that, that old school, just straight up cold calling is completely ineffective, right? So I appreciate that. And yeah, the reason I ask is you mentioned, about growing the business and you wanting to have somebody else help eventually, right, with the sales stuff. So thinking about sales itself as a process, that's something you and I could talk about more
Absolutely.
online, right? But I think you're headed in a really good direction there. So good for you. Okay, I also wanted to talk with you this morning a little bit about your experience. You graciously agreed to give up a morning of your time back at the beginning of April when Joanne Yarrow, my good friend from Distinctive Voices, and I put on a workshop, Successful Leadership. And you came, and we had a nice small audience that participated. I'd like to hear, again, without prompting or any rehearsal, what did you take away? What were your thoughts on that workshop and the value to you?
Oh, I thought it was incredible, because not only was it fantastic for being able to learn and develop when it comes to, structural benefits, and when it comes to, a lot more than that. There's a lot of topics we talked about, but what I thought was so unique about it is bringing kind of two perspectives in the professional development world together. And you guys both really were able to offer a little bit of your own expertise, but then also, like I said, different perspectives on, some of the stuff that we talk about all the time. So I thought it was really, really awesome to be able to see that. And I loved the engagement of it.
Yeah.
I think we live in just such a short-term content world, to where, being able to actually attend that and learn for a couple hours, it was awesome. It was great, especially to be there in person.
Yeah.
That was very fun.
Cool. Well, again, we really appreciate you being there, and I want to talk a little bit more about that this morning. So the workshop is titled Keys to Successful Leadership. And myself from Operations Excellence, and Joanne Yarrow from Distinctive Voices. And Joanne's background, her whole career is in the performing arts world. She is a very talented person. She has done directing. She does voice coaching. And she also has, in the last handful of years, gotten into coaching other executives outside of the performing arts world. And what we did with the workshop, and you were part of this, she got into things like presence, right? Which, in the performing arts world, they call stage presence. But you can also view it from the business world as, how do you command a space? How do you command a room, right? When you are speaking or in a meeting, right? Leading a meeting. She also talked about the art of storytelling. And I remember one of the guys that I work for, who was a great boss, and I won't mention his name, but great guy, still friends to this day. I remember saying to him one time, because part of his job was he was the great whale hunter. Like, he landed the big mega projects for the company that I worked for at that time. And we were reviewing one of the projects he had just landed or was about to land. I was running operations, and I remember saying to him at the end of the discussion, I couldn't do what you do. And he kind of smiled and laughed, and he said, Mark, we're all always selling all the time. And that's the first time, anybody said that to me that directly in my life, and I went, wow, right? He's right. If the very least, we're selling an idea. Yeah. We're pitching a concept. We're trying to convince somebody something. Right? Even if it's just in a meeting, like, we should do X instead of Y, right? Whatever. So the ability to understand how to relate and tell a story is so critical for a leader, right? And so many people aren't really good at that, right? So those are some of the things that Joanne brought to the workshop. We get into, from my perspective in the workshop, right? We talked about what is leadership, what makes a successful leader. And I think that was a little bit eye-opening, because we did a little exercise, and I don't want to give the whole thing away, but it's pretty common. People come up with all these different characteristics, and guess what? There's some of those characteristics might be diametrically opposed to each other. It doesn't mean they're wrong. It just means that certain characteristics of a leader might fit in one situation and might not in another. So what really defines a successful leader? Well, at the end of the day, they get results. Right, so there's a hook I just gave away from the workshop. My buddy, our producer Danny's over there chuckling. I can't not give it away, Danny. What can I say, buddy? It's just how I am. Then we get into EQ, and we talked a little bit about EQ, or emotional intelligence, a bit this morning. So important, and all aspects of it are important to a leader. I've already talked about those here this morning, but one of the most important things that I always try to stress, whether it's one-on-one coaching or development programs, you cannot have really solid honest, good human-to-human relations without empathy.
Yeah.
Full stop. And that's not Mark making that up. There's just a ton of behavioral science behind that. And people sometimes hear empathy and they mistake it for sympathy. You know, empathy doesn't mean I agree with you. Empathy is just the ability and making the effort to understand how somebody else feels, but then also continuing to make the effort to understand where that feeling is coming from, what's behind it, right? Why they feel that way. That's empathy. Sympathy is, right, I feel for you. I can, you know, I share, right, where you're coming from. That has nothing to do with empathy. I can be diametrically opposed with how you feel about a certain topic and yet still be empathetic, right, to make that. And why that's so important to human relationships is, the truth is, unless people are sociopathic or psychotic or something, like most human beings, when somebody else makes that effort, right, and is practicing empathy with them, most people respond in kind because we inherently understand that, right? Like when somebody's really listening to me, right, I understand that, yeah, they're not just listening to me, they're really hearing me and they're making an effort to understand me. That is the basis of real human-to-human connection. So you can see when you look at it that way and understand that definition that way, why that's so important, right, to a leader. Because at the end of the day, leadership, like most of human life, is really about relationships, right? Because what I do or what I make as far as, you know, the business or the organization I'm in is almost secondary, right? If I have good relationships and I can understand people, where they're coming from and connect with people, then I can really be a successful leader. Because at the end of the day, it is about getting results. And then we get into some other things talking about effective communications and listening effectively. When I say communications, and we talked about this in the workshop, what do most people think about? Well, he's a really good speaker. Okay, I'm a pretty good speaker. But does that, by definition, make me a great communicator? Because effective communication only happens when an idea is effectively communicated and received. Right? So I could be the best talker in the world, but if people aren't receiving it, then there's a missing link somewhere, right? So we talk a lot with helping leaders give them some tools. I was going to say the word teach, and that's why I hesitated, but really give them the tools and then the opportunity to practice using those tools on how to listen more effectively. I always use the analogy, and I think I did it in the workshop, that, you know, we were given 2 ears and 1 mouth. Right? There's something to that equation and that ratio, meaning we should be listening twice as much as we talk, or certainly putting the effort in. Because what's the common human trend, right? That oftentimes if I'm in a conversation and the other person is talking, don't most of us, at least some of the time, aren't we already thinking about what we're going to say next?
Yeah.
Right? So if I'm doing that, by definition, I'm not really hearing you. Because also this concept of multitasking, the truth is I can only really hold one thought and focus on one thought at a time in detail. So if I'm thinking about what I'm going to say, I might be catching what you're saying, but I'm not really focused on the tone of voice, right? The body language, the facial expressions. And the other thing we talk about is how 92 or 93% of communication is nonverbal, right? Meaning the words I use are only that 7 or 8%. The rest of it is the body language, the tone, the facial expressions, right? So if you're really going to listen, you got to tune in to that stuff, because that's going to tell you a lot more behind the story on, is the person receiving it? And then there's other tools like active listening. And I'm not going to spend the whole thing here to get into that, but there's some really cool tools, and all it takes is to start practicing those to become a better listener.
Yeah, and it was great to be able to see that and to go through those exercises, because I feel like it's not something that, you know, you get the opportunity to learn about all the time. I mean,
Right.
Unless you're really seeking out that professional development, it's not truly talked about as much as topics or verbal communication.
Sure.
So, I thought it was incredible to be able to be there and learn some things and do the exercises too. Every time you talk about something and actually take action to do it, it just sticks with you a lot more.
100%. 100%. And I think the value, we're going to offer this coming up soon as a learning video for a very reasonable price. It is all professionally produced, thanks to Danny and the staff here at Clickstream Content. So the professionalism, right, of the finished product, I think, is at a very high level. I know that. I've already seen bits and pieces of the finished product, but also just the amount of content. I want to say I think we ended up with 7 modules and roughly averaging around 20 minutes a module, right? So you're talking 140 minutes of content, and we're going to offer it at a very, very reasonable price, way below what somebody would pay for an in-person half-a-day workshop. And they get to at least observe, right, that interaction when people are doing exercises. And we're also going to have some giveaways, some content that'll be attached when they purchase the video, where they can do some work on their own stuff, right, at home or in their workplace. Just a couple of the last pieces. I talked about the art of storytelling that Joanne goes through in the workshop. And then we get into goal planning and goal achievement. And I thought it was really interesting because everybody at that workshop was a very successful person, right? Different backgrounds, different ages, whatever, but very successful person in different organizations and businesses. But it was a really engaged discussion.
Yes, it was.
It was a really interesting discussion because I don't think people had ever seen that approach, that there is a definitive process, right, on how to set goals and then how to go about achieving those goals. And most people have heard the term SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, realistically high, time sensitive. We add Y in front of SMART, so why SMART? And the Y stands for written, harmonious, and yours. So, that acronym is very important to really, if you're going to set a goal, it needs to meet, right, all the letters in that acronym. Right, but then we get into the process. And I think one of the coolest things about the process is, and I actually use a version of the goal-setting process when I'm having fact-finding discussions with potential clients. And what do I mean by that? What I'm really getting at is, I sit down and ask people, how's business, or how's your organization? How's things going? Because I work with not-for-profits sometimes too. What are you trying to achieve? How was last year? Did you achieve your goals? If not, what do you think was stopping you? What were the obstacles? All right. What do we need to do to help you achieve your goals is ultimately what I'm after. So I really want to hear from them. What are they trying to achieve? Have they achieved it? And if not, what are the obstacles? And then we start delving a little deeper into, all right, let's talk about the detail of the obstacles. And what I'm doing is literally using the goal achieving process to dig into the obstacles to help start identifying possible solutions. Yeah. Right? And then from there, you identify actual action steps.
It's incredible what you can do when you actually, that's one of the things I've learned with working with you is what you can actually do when you break down these goals into, achievable steps, as opposed to, before I, like probably a lot of people would set, New Year's resolution goals. Where
Perfect
you're just
example.
I'm gonna do this. And then I don't think about it until I get close, and then I'm like, oh, I did it, or forget about it, and never happens.
There's a date, I think it's in February, if I'm not mistaken, and I forget the name, what it's called, but they've actually over time come up with this, that by, I'm just guessing now, it's like February 15th, that most people have given up on their New Year's resolution, right? Because it's not a goal, right? It doesn't meet that criteria. So if I just say I want to lose weight, okay, that's a New Year's resolution. Good for you. Yeah. But that's not a goal, right? It's
and
not.
Then,
so
even if you're like, I want to lose 30 pounds, that could sound ridiculously intimidating. But if it's 10 pounds a month,
there you go.
Over the course of 3 months, that's achievable. There you go.
And now you just got specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, right? You start checking those boxes, and now I have a target date, right? Okay, by January 31st, it's now January 1st, I want to lose 10 pounds. Okay, well, what are the obstacles in the way? Geez, I might eat too much. I might not get enough exercise. Okay, so what do I have to do? I have to have a plan to overcome those obstacles. All right, so I better pay attention to my diet. How am I going to do that? What specific steps am I going to take? Do I need to shop differently? Do I need to plan differently? Do I need to cook differently? Do I need to, coordinate all this with my partner at home, right? I mean, so now you've got a whole list of things that I can take action on. Very specific action, right? Same thing with the exercise piece. So it's really, once you start breaking it down, it's not rocket science. And once you've done it a few times, you can see how quickly, and now you've been through it a little bit. Now you get it. Yeah. If I take this big, I work with people and they say, well, I want to retire at 55, or I want to be able to put my kid through college. Well, how old's your kid? Well, he's 6 months old. Great. We got a lot of time. So what's that look like? Now let's break it down. What do you need to do every year? Okay. So what do you need to do every month? Okay. So what do you need to do every paycheck? Now we're talking very specific, realistic, attainable actions, right? That I can go, it's just, once you've been through the process, it becomes almost self-evident how to follow it. But it was interesting how you could see several people in the room, and I don't know if you got this impression, but I certainly did standing in front, that there were several of them that had little aha moments where you could kind of see them go, huh. They didn't say it, but you could almost see the light bulb go on and go, oh, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah. 100%. It's funny to see that when people, when people gain the perspective they need.
Yeah.
Or they've been looking for.
Well, that's the juice in what I do for a living, right? Because I get to see that with people, and it's like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like the moment the light bulb goes on. When I'm coaching one-on-one clients, typically especially if it's a video call, when they do this, when they pick up the pen and right, like, all right, I earned my pay for this time with them because they just took something away. And typically, it's 2 or 3 things, and that's cool. But it is so cool to see the light bulb go on. But that was a very fun thing. And then, the last piece I talked about, I believe, was goal alignment. And I love calling this the secret sauce, because at the end of the day, success as a leader is all about getting results, right? So how do you drive to those results? Well, this is where we tie things together, right? Because if I've built solid relationships using empathy and utilizing my EQ, and I have the kind of relationships with my team members where they've opened up to me and I understand not only where they're coming from, but what are their aspirations? People aren't going to tell me what their innermost aspirations and goals are and their dreams are if they don't trust me. Human nature, right? So I have to build those kind of relationships. So if I've done that and people have told me that, now, right, we can have organizational goals, department goals, however big your organization is, and maybe it's not very big, doesn't matter. But you can take those organizational goals, take it right down to the individual level, and now I can help each individual team member understand how achieving the organization's goals is going to help them achieve their personal goals, right? So if you can do that, those are the people, now their internal motivation is what's driving them, not because Zach said so or Mark said so or Danny said so, right? It's because this is what's in it for me. Now I have skin in the game. Yeah. Now those people are going to do what you want them to do because they want to do it. If you had a whole organization with people with that kind of drive and motivation internal, what could you accomplish? Right? So that's why I call it the secret sauce. That will set you up for not just short-term success, but a growing long-term successful organization, because people are always going to be looking for, how can we make this better? How can we do it even better? How can we, right? Because now I've got skin in the game. This achievement of the organization's goals is going to help me achieve my goals. And it's not always necessarily about money. Everybody's got different aspirations and goals, right? So that's it. But it was a very cool experience, and I really can't wait. We're going to be getting it out there very soon for sale online. And for those of you that are checking in with us, please do check it out. I think you're going to find the value is an incredible value for what you're getting, and I think you're going to get a lot out of it. So if people wanted to reach Zach and the LED sign guys, how do they get a hold of you?
They can either go to theledsignguys.com or give us a call or text at 315-816-0633.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. Zach, good to see you as always, my friend. We'll have you on again sometime soon.
Sounds like a plan.
Thanks again to Danny, and thanks to Clickstream Content, as always. Great to see you again, my friend. Danny, have a good day.